In this tutorial, you'll learn how to add sound effects to your scenes. The Dreamiverse already contains tons of ready-made sounds, and we're going to use some of them right now to bring this scene to life. First, let's switch over to play mode and see how it all sounds at the moment. Quiet, isn't it? Just doesn't feel right. In fact, it's creeping me out. So let's head back into edit mode and switch over to sound mode so we can start adding some sounds. Find the modes menu in the assembly menu. As you can see, there are lots of different modes, each with its own set of tools for doing different things. We're still in assembly mode right now, but if you select the speaker symbol icon with X, we'll switch to sound mode. That's better. In the next step, we'll start adding sounds to the scene. Okay, the first thing we need to do is start adding some background sounds. See the icon with the magnifying glass in the sound menu? That's the search button. Select it now to see all different types of sounds you can add. Now select the speaker icon to search for sound effects. This is the Dreamiverse, where you can find all the stuff other dreamers have made. I've set aside a collection of sound effects for you in here. That's what this cluster is. It's full of different sound effects for you to use. Select it with X to open it. I've arranged the sound effects into groups. To get a proper overview, use the right stick to zoom in or out of the collection. This group of sound effects are background sounds, and you can hear a preview of each sound by hovering over them with your imp. Find something that you think fits the dreamy atmosphere of the scene. I rather like Dream Space. When you've found a sound you like, select it with X. Your imp now has a gadget with the sound you selected, so you can stamp it into your scene with R2 any place you like. It doesn't matter where, since background's everywhere in a scene. Now let's play the scene with R3 and see how it all sounds. Ah, much better. Notice how much more alive the scene feels with just that one sound. Just imagine how it will feel with even more sound effects. But no need to imagine it. You can start adding more now to create a layered and unique ambience. If you want to replace a sound effect, just stamp a different one over it. When you've got things sounding just how you want them, rewind the scene with L3 and move on to the next step. Background sounds really help to create an immersive atmosphere. But to add sound to a specific object in the scene, you need to use what we call a spot sound. Let's try it out with the fire between the platforms. I'm sure we can find some fire sound effects in the collection. Let's take a look. Select Search Sound Effects from the sound menu. Because we opened the tutorial collection in the last step, it's still open when we come back to the Dreamiverse. How handy. Aha, just what we need. Some fire sound effects. Have a listen to some of the fire sounds and pick one you like. Once you've selected it, your imp will be equipped with a spot sound effect. See those rings coming off the gadget? That's the sound's fade zone. The rings show you how the sound fades away as you move further from the source. Let's stamp that sound between the first two platforms, above the fire, and see what that sounds like. If you want to see the sound's fade zone, select the gadget with X. Click R3 to hear the sound effect. You'll notice the sound is louder the closer you move towards it with the left stick. Ah, you can almost feel that fire. Toasty. As you move away and out of the fade zone, it gets quieter until you can't hear it at all. You can press circle now to deselect the sound effect, then click L3 to rewind the scene. And if you're happy with your spot sound, move on to the next step. Things haven't been too tricky for Connie so far, but even with her mighty jumping skills, the next gap looks a bit too big for her. Let's fly over to that floating platform with the left and right sticks and get a closer look at it. Looks like there's a trigger zone attached to it. Why don't we switch over to play mode and see what it does? Well, will you look at that? It lights up the platform when Connie steps on it. Lovely! You know what would make it even better, though? If it made a sound too. So let's switch back to edit mode and make that happen. I've got a feeling you can find something in the tutorial collection to use here. Go to the assembly menu and go back into sound mode. Thanks. Over here are some energy sound effects. Have a listen to a few. Pick a sound effect for your light-up platform. I quite like the sound of Dream Terminal, but see which one you like and select it with X. Now it's time to stamp it in the scene, somewhere near the platform. In the next step, I'll show you how to trigger the sound effect. As we've already seen, background and spot sounds will play constantly if placed in the scene like this. But for the platform, we want the sound to be triggered by Connie. And for that to happen, we need to connect the sound effect to the trigger zone that activates the glow. Moving closer to the platform with the left and right sticks, and take a good look at the trigger zone gadgets. See how there's an output port that says detected when you hover over it? Well, that means it will trigger when it detects a possessed puppet, like Connie. So all we have to do to make the sound effect activate when Connie's on the platform is connect the output to the sound effect. Let's do that now. When you select the detected port with R2 or X, you'll see your imp becomes tethered to the port by a wire. Gadgets communicate with each other with wires like this. You'll also notice that a power port has appeared on the bottom of the sound effect gadget. All you have to do to connect the two gadgets is hover over that power port and press R2 or X. Time to head into play mode and see how that sounds. When you're ready, switch back to edit mode and start the next step. Hey, I just realised, we got so caught up in these sound effects, we forgot to add another platform for Connie. She must be getting impatient, so let's sort that out for her. Remember how to do that? Just hover over it, hold L1, and press and hold R2. Once the clone has been created, let go of L1. Move it to the right spot, then release R2 to place it down. When you clone an object, any gadgets attached to it will come along for the ride. So all you need to do now is wire the trigger zone on the second platform to the sound effect. Or better yet, grab a new sound effect from the collection for some variety. It's up to you. Dream shapers should always go with their instincts. Whichever way you choose to go, move on to the next step when you're ready. All right, just one more gap for Connie to cross before she reaches the door. That pink cylinder would make a great stepping stone for her, but it's all the way down in the water. If you take a closer look at it though, you'll see there's a trigger zone and a movement sensor on it. They're not connected to anything right now. There's also a keyframe on the platform. I wonder what that does. Try selecting it with X to find out. Just as I thought, it raises the cylinder so Connie can use it to cross over. Press circle to deselect the keyframe. Looks like all we need to do is connect the cylinder's trigger zone to the keyframe, so it moves up when she gets close. And since we're doing that, why not add a sound effect to it too? Let's jump back into the sound effects collection and see if there's anything appropriate in there. Down here, we've got some mechanical sound effect loops. These are the perfect sound effects for any sort of machinery in a scene. We want something that would go well with a raising platform. I think I'll go for the heavy metal ratchet loop. Sounds good, right? Okay, select the sound effect of your choice and stamp it near the pink cylinder with R2 or X. In the next step, now we just need to do a little bit of wiring to get everything working. Remember, the trigger zone will activate when it detects Connie, raising the platform, which is controlled by the keyframe. So grab the detected output from the trigger zone with R2 or X. Then stretch the wire up to the keyframe gadget and connect it to its power port with R2 or X. Now let's get the sound effect working. This will be triggered by the movement sensor, which detects if the object it's attached to is moving. So when the platform starts rising, the movement sensor will send a signal from its output ports. That's the output port on the right side of the movement sensor gadget. It's called velocity overall. Press R2 or X over that port to create a wire now. You'll need to connect the other end of that wire to the sound effects power ports. Once that's done, switch over to play mode to test everything out. Much better. That sound effect really makes a big difference. But there's even more you can do to bring this scene to life. See if you can add some sound to the water between the platforms. I think there's some water sounds in the tutorial collection. Experiment with all the different effects as much as you like, and see what you can come up with. When you're done, just take Connie through the door in play mode to finish this tutorial. This tutorial is all about making music. Music can make your creations come alive by adding emotion and atmosphere. Music in Dreams can range from a simple looping track to interactive and procedural music. You can compose tracks from scratch and even create your own instruments. But you don't need to be a maestro to start making your own music. In this tutorial, we'll be making music using ready-made music clips. The music you can hear right now was made with music clips. You can use some of these clips to create your own arrangement. To start making music, we need to switch over to sound mode. Right now you're in assembly mode. If you're ever unsure of what mode you're in, just hover over the mode icon in the top right corner to see your current mode and tool. Go to the assembly menu and open the mode section with X. The modes menu is where you access all the different creation modes. Each mode has its own set of tools and options, and the icon for sound mode is a speaker symbol. Select it with X. You now have a new menu at the top of the screen. This is the sound menu. It contains everything you need to make your own music. In the scene, you'll see a timeline gadget. In the next step, I'll show you how to edit it. Music in Dreams is arranged in timelines. This timeline contains a version of the music you heard at the start of this tutorial. But to see what's inside a timeline, we need to open its canvas. Hover your imp over the timeline. Hold L1, then press X to open it. It's just like scoping into a group. This is the timeline canvas. The timeline exists within scene space, so if you pull down on the left stick, you'll back away from it. Hold the L1 button and use the left stick to move up and down the timeline. This is the best way to navigate around timelines, especially when they're big ones. This piece of music is called Connie's theme. To listen to it, just play the scene by clicking R3. See how the piece is composed of many music clips. The clips power on and off as the playhead passes over them. Click the R3 button again to pause the scene. Each music clip is a collection of notes made by an instrument. You can grab them and move them around with your imp. If you want to delete a music clip, just press triangle over it. Clips can also be cloned by holding L1 when you grab them. You can extend the timeline by hovering over one of its edges and holding X. The edge glows and an arrow icon appears when you hover over it. You can also extend the bottom if you need space for more clips. Once you've finished listening to the piece, click the L3 button to rewind the scene. You'll find lots of different pieces of music by searching the Dreamiverse. To add music to one of your scenes, you could simply stamp a ready-made timeline like this one. But in this tutorial, you'll assemble your own track from ready-made music clips. Move on to the next step and we'll get started. So, let's start making music. It's actually a lot easier than you might think. Close the timeline by selecting the cross button in the top right corner. Or hover over it, hold L1 and press circle to close it. Now delete the timeline by hovering over it with your imp and pressing triangle. Let's add a fresh music timeline to the scene. Press square to open the sound menu. Select the music timeline button in the menu. Then stamp one in the scene with R2 or X. Press circle to unequip the timeline gadget from your imp. Open up the timeline canvas with L1 and X. This timeline is empty, ready for you to fill it with music. The columns on the timeline represent musical bars. This timeline is 8 bars long. We'll need more space than that, so hover over the right edge and grab it with X. Extend the timeline to 16 bars. Now let's add a music clip to the timeline. Press square to open the sound menu. Find the search button and select it with X. Its icon is the magnifying glass. In sound mode, search gives you options for finding different types of sounds. Select Search Music Clips with X. The icon looks like some music notes and sliders. This is the Dreamiverse. Here you can find music made by other dream shapers. Well, normally you can, but for this tutorial I've made a collection of elements for you to use. That's what this cluster is. Select it with X to open it. It contains a selection of music clips that you can use to build your own arrangements. Use the right stick to zoom in and out, and the left stick to move around. I've grouped the clips into different categories. Let's start with a basic melody. That's this group of clips. Hover over the music clips to hear a preview of how they sound. Find one that you like, then select it with X to equip it to your imp. I'm using the clip Nostalgia Bells. Your imp will now be holding a gadget containing your selected clip. If you hover over the timeline, the gadget snaps to the canvas and reveals the whole clip. Place the clip at the start of the timeline and stamp it with R2 or X. Clips on a timeline will snap to the bars and to other clips to help you line them up exactly. Click R3 to listen to the timeline. In the next step, we'll build up the track with some more clips. Click L3 to rewind the scene. Let's build on the melody by adding some chords. Go to the sound menu and select Search Music Clips again. Over here are some chords clips. Hover over the clips to preview them and select one with X. I'm going with Suspended Pad, but you don't have to copy me if you don't want to. Stamp your clip on a new row of the timeline and snap it to the start. Click R3 to listen and notice how the clips play together in time. Click L3 to rewind the scene. Now let's add some drums. Go back to the sound menu and select Search Music Clips. Find the drum clips in the collection. The drum beat can really change the feel of a track. I love these samba practice drums. Pick a drum clip you like, then stamp it on the timeline under the melody and the chords. Now click R3 to hear how that all sounds. All the clips in the collection are in the same time and key, so you can mix and match them. Click L3 to rewind the scene. In the next step, I'll show you how to edit the length of your clips and how to add fades. When you hover over a clip on the timeline, you'll see dotted lines light up on the beginning and end of the clip. Move closer to the timeline so you can see them properly. These are trim handles. We can use them to change the length of a clip. Hover over the handle on the end of the drums clip and hold R2 to grab it. Because these clips are loops, you can extend the clip beyond its original length. All the clips in the collection can be extended like this. Trim handles are really useful for arranging and remixing. They let you use just a section of a clip without having to edit the music notes inside. On top of the trim handle, you'll see a little coloured gizmo. Move in close to see it properly. This is a fade handle. Trim handle, you'll see really useful for arranging. If these clips are loops, you can extend the clip beyond its original length. All the clips in the collection can be extended like this. Trim handles are really useful for arranging and remixing. They let you use just a section of a clip without having to edit the music notes inside. On top of the trim handle, you'll see a little coloured gizmo. Move in close to see it properly. This is a fade handle. You can use it to fade the volume of a clip in or out. It works just like the trim handle. Grab the gizmo with R2 and move your imp left or right to create a fade. Try adding a fade out on the chords clips so it drops off gradually. Drag it out further for a longer fade. Now click R3 to play the scene. Doesn't that sound cool? You might have noticed that the music stops as soon as the playhead reaches the end of the timeline. In the next step, I'll show you how to make your timeline loop. Now click L3 to rewind the scene. To make the track play constantly in the scene, we need to set the timeline to loop. We can do this in the Timeline's tweak menu. Hover over a blank area of the timeline, hold L1, then press square to open its tweak menu. In here, we can change the timeline settings. Find the playback mode section. There are 3 options. Once means the timeline will play once all the way through when it's powered on. Sustain means the timeline will pause when it's not powered, then resume once it's powered on again. Loop means the timeline will play repeatedly while it's powered on. Hover over the loop icon and press X to change the playback mode. You can also change the playback speed in the tweak menu. Hover over the playback speed slider and hold X to grab it. Now move your IMP to the left or right to adjust the value. Click R3 to hear your adjustments live. You can also adjust the slider by hovering over it and holding the up and down directional buttons. See how it sounds when it's slowed down or sped up a little. To close the tweak menu, hover anywhere over it and press circle. You can also tweak music clips to make them loop. Just hover over them, hold L1 and press square to open their tweak menus. You can also change their volume and tempo. Tweak music clips to make them loop. Just hover over them. Hold L1 and press square to open their tweak menus. You can also change their volume and tempo. Be careful changing the tempo though, as your clip could go out of time with the others. We've made a cool piece of music, but you can carry on adding more clips if you want. Maybe you heard something in the tutorial collection that would sound awesome in your arrangement. Try trimming and looping tracks. See what you can come up with. If you need extra space, you can extend the timeline by grabbing the edges with X. Once you're finished, switch over to play mode and listen to your track in the scene. All the clips we've used in this tutorial come from the Media Molecule music collection. The collection contains lots of music clips you can use, as well as some complete tracks. Look for it in the Dreamiverse next time you're making music in sound mode. To end the tutorial, just press Options and select the Exit button.